Welcome to Brother Miller's Notes. I'm so glad you're with me today. We're going to study Genesis 24 through 33 together. Years ago, there was a pamphlet that I loved reading. It was about a man named Rowan. It was titled A Message to Garcia. Its author, his name was Albert Hubbard. He recounts the story of this man, Rowan, who was invited to lunch one day by his commanding officer. And his commanding officer said, "Are you prepared to go to Jamaica?" Well, he's not going to be asked to go to Jamaica because the President of the United States had a very important message to deliver to the insurgent leader in the mountains of Cuba. This is right before the Spanish-American War. He had to know, okay, this insurgency in Cuba, are you with us or are you against us, against the Spanish? And the leader was meeting with President McKinley. He says, "I know your man, Rowan. So Rowan, are you ready? I'm not going to tell you where you're going to go." And later, the next day, he's invited to take a message from the President of the United States to this general, the leader of the insurgents, General Garcia. Rowan doesn't ask where Garcia could be found. No one knows. He's in the mountains. He didn't ask how he could be recognized. There's not a picture of him. He can't get on the TV. Hey, how do I get there? How do I survive there? How do I get back? None of those questions were asked. What clothes do I pack? He doesn't ask any of those questions. By his experience, by he understands what's going on, this is important. He takes the message, and it's a Herculean effort. He goes and he's on this fishing ship, goes over to Cuba. It is through the jungles. He finally finds this group of fighters for General Garcia. They take him to General Garcia, deliver the message, and then General Garcia says, "All right, I have a message that I want you to take back to the President of the United States." According to the unofficial Arlington National Cemetery website, Rowan crosses the island of Cuba, not only succeeds in delivering a message to General Garcia, but secured secret information relative to existing military conditions in that region of such great value that had an important bearing on the quick ending of the struggle and the complete success of the U.S. Army. Within 3 weeks, Rowan, in the company of Cubans who are assigned by Garcia to accompany him back, is back on American shores. Their journey home was anything but easy. First, the men had to hack their way through the jungle without supplies of any kind, hunting for food along the way. Then, in a tiny boat with sails, made with gunny sacks. And I read the story to some of the missionaries that I serve with, and they said, "What's a gunny sack?" I thought, oh, you are a little younger than me. Gunny sack used to put potatoes in, the coarse cloth. Made a perilous journey across the sea to the United States. They're dodging the Spanish all along the way. After their arrival, Rowan and his companions met President McKinley during a cabinet meeting to relay their hard-earned information. As a result, Rowan was hailed a hero for his daring military adventure. And I don't think that the hero part for me is he had this adventure. The hero part to me is he just says, "I've got a message to Garcia. I'm going to deliver it." He knows he needs to do it. And all of the things aren't in place for him to know all the answers. And I thought a lot about this as we introduce our what we're studying this week, because there's so many times where we know what's going to happen. I mean, that's the nice thing about studying the scriptures. We know what's going to happen to them, but they don't. They have no idea what's going to happen. And so, as we start off, we get this invitation by Abraham to his eldest, his most trusted servant. "Go to my country, to my kindred, and take a wife for my son Isaac." Who do you trust to do that? And I think, okay, this servant, what questions does a servant ask? Does he know what the country is of Abraham? Yes. Relatives? General area. Does he have a picture? No. It's going to be 800 miles, and it's not through a safe area, and the guy's old. This is the kind of servant that I admire and I hope to be. I mean, he has done some things down, but it's not just that he needs to know everything before he acts. He knows and knows he needs to get going and acts. So the trip is from Hebron, goes up to Haran, and back. It's going to be about 800 miles. When he gets there, you may recognize this image. Well, it's actually created by AI. I'm liking AI right now. He gets out, causes his camels to kneel, and in chapter 24, verse 12, and he said, O Lord God, Master Abraham, of my master Abraham, I pray thee, send me good speed this day. Show kindness unto my master Abraham. I thought, why is he offering this prayer? Why is he outside the city? Well, he doesn't know who he's looking for. Please help me to find the right relative and the right girl. He is trusting God. I love that. And Nahum M. Sarna said this, there is a profound and pervasive conviction from this simple, unnamed servant about the role of divine providence in human affairs. This man prayed for personal divine guidance at a critical moment of his life. We note that he did not ask for miraculous intervention of God to designate a future bride of Isaac. On the contrary, he himself decided upon the criteria of suitability and choice. He prayed, rather, that his exercise of discretion might be in accordance with God's will. This prayer is an inaudible prayer of the heart, uttered spontaneously and without formality. It implies a concept of the individual as a conscious personality, individual direct contact with God, a feeling of constant nearness to the divine, and an understanding of God as approachable. One of the heroes of this whole story for me is this servant who acts and trusts God will help him because he's on God's errand. So you get this, that the Lord guides, middle of chapter 25, this is the chapter summary. The Lord guides Abraham's servant in choosing Rebekah as a wife. And verse 27, you get that, and you get how he was blessed, how he was led. Now this is the unnamed servant. Some people name him as Eleazar. It's not in the scriptures, but he said, Blessed be the Lord God of my master, Abraham, who hath not left destitute my master in his mercy and his truth. I, being in the way, and I thought a lot about that phrase, I being in the way, I'm commanded to go and get this spouse. And has this kind of a little bit remarkable experience of Rebekah, an incredible woman, coming and being so willing to be the type of a woman that he's looking for the spouse for Isaac. She's observant. She's serving. She's offering to serve. And then she's quick about it. She goes and serves and just gets all those camels and gets them their water. And I put that in perspective. A camel could drink 30 gallons in 15 minutes if they're thirsty. I imagine they're thirsty. You got 10 camels, that's 300 gallons of water. That is a lot that she's offering. But his summary, I just want to focus on that. I being in the way. Being in the way means up and doing. I didn't know all the answers. I was just up and doing. I was acting figuratively. It's a course of life. It's a mode of action. I was acting. This is my life. I don't know all the answers, but I do my best, and I'm trusting God's going to do the rest. Being up and doing, I'm in the way. This is the way I do it. I'm in action. The Lord led me. Thomas S. Monson was one of the great examples of this in his life. He was always in the way, on the Lord's errand. And there are so many times where, you probably remember stories, he gets to the hospital, has no idea why he's supposed to be there. Pushes the button on the elevator, goes up, doesn't know who he's going to go visit. Walks down the hall. Okay, Lord, guide me. Where am I supposed to be? President Monson said, when we are on the Lord's errand, we are entitled to the Lord's help. Remember that. When the Lord calls, the Lord qualifies. In the way, you are led of God. Same way as Nephi. He's another example. He's on his way to go get the plates, and things aren't working out well. It's nighttime. You get 1 Nephi 4:5. It was by night I caused that they, brothers, should hide themselves without the walls, and then they hid themselves. I, Nephi, crept into the city and went forth towards the house of Laban. I, being led by the Spirit, not knowing beforehand what I should do. Does he know he needs to get the plates? Yeah. Does he know all the details? No. I love he is being led by the Spirit. I've recently been reading a book that I've wanted to read for a long time called Atomic Habits. Maybe you've read it many times. I love this quote in Atomic Habits. When you're in motion, you're planning and strategizing and learning. Those are all good things, but they don't produce a result. Action, on the other hand, is the type of behavior that will deliver an outcome. If motion doesn't lead to results, then why do we do it? Sometimes we do it because we actually need to plan or learn more. But more often than not, we do it because motion allows us to feel like we're making progress without running the risk of failure. And I thought about this in context of the servant and Nephi. Are they risking failure? Yeah. Has Nephi suffered some failure? Yeah. I imagine this elderly servant, trusted servant, has a lifetime where maybe he's acted and everything's not turned out quite right. But faith in Jesus Christ also contains the idea that you're going to act, but you have a heavenly assurance. The way Joseph Smith explained it, faith in Jesus Christ is the assurance which men have of the exercise of things which they have not seen, that is, with their natural eyes, and the principle of action in all intelligent beings. Faith is not only the principle of action, but of power. And that is, you got that divine assurance, but you got to act. And that risk of failure, I think of that back to the evidence. There's evidence that the servant was planning. There's evidence that the servant was in motion. He was doing things and acting. But there's also evidence, man, he's taking a big risk. And I'll just give you one that from a pocket, wallet, money perspective, you think about what he says here in chapter 24, verse 13. Behold, I stand here by the well of water, and the daughters of the men of the city come out to draw water. Let it come to pass that the damsel whom I shall say, let down thy pitcher, I pray thee, that I may drink. And she shall say, drink, and I will give thy camels to drink also. Let that be the same that thou hast appointed for thy servant Isaac. And thereby thou shalt know thou hast showed kindness unto my master. And I should add, when she does this, there's a little bit of drama, I think, in his mind. At least I'm putting myself in his shoes. I probably shouldn't say it's in his mind, because it would be in my mind. When she says, okay, here, let me get drink for you. Then she pauses and lets him drink, and he drinks it all. and then says, okay, now let me get drink for the camels. Now there's a little bit of suspense. I mean, if I'm that servant and I'm drinking, going, wait, shouldn't you be asking for my camels too? Uh-oh, maybe this isn't the girl. But look at the risk he does in verse 22. And it came to pass, as the camels had done drinking, 300 gallons of water-ish. Okay, that's a lot to pull out of a well. That the man took a golden earring of a half shekel weight. How much is that today's dollars? Half shekel gold is about 7.5 grams of gold. It's worth about $1,000. February 2026. So $1,000 worth of earrings and 2 bracelets for her hands of 10 shekels gold weight. 10 shekels is 12,480. Hey, she just watered my camels. This is who I told God, if she does this, I will, she's the one. And then he's like, okay, now I'm also going to give $13,480 worth of jewelry to her. I am believing that what I communicated with God, and God said this is the way it's going to be, that's some trust. I don't think he has several pair of these in his knapsack they can give to lots of girls just trying to find the right one. There is a little bit of risk, but God trusts us and he'll guide us. I love President Uchtdorf's, now it was Elder Uchtdorf at the time, when he gave this thought. Have you ever thought about the tremendous risk our Father in heaven takes each time he sends a child to earth? The memory of their time in God's presence is veiled over, and yet he trusts us as parents. God takes some risks with us. Hey, quite frankly, if you have a spouse, they took a big risk on marrying you. They took a risk on your potential, what you become in 5 years. Maybe, probably a little bit who you were. President Nelson said this: we might ask ourselves, where's our faith? Is it in a team? Is it in a brand? Is it in a celebrity? Even the best teams can fail. Celebrities can fade. There is only one in whom your faith is always safe, and that is in the Lord Jesus Christ. And you need to let your faith show. We're back to Joseph Smith. We're back to the servant. Be in the way, acting. Boyd K. Packer, who learned this lesson as an apostle, where he tells a story, and I'm not going to quote it here all the way, just kind of paraphrase it from my memory. There's a thing that comes up with the Quorum of the 12. They're unsettled. They don't make a decision. He afterwards goes to a most senior member of the Quorum of 12 and says, hey, how are we going to do this? And they just kind of chuckle and say, Boyd, that's your problem. You want the entire path to be lit when the Lord asks us to take one step into the darkness. President Boyd K. Packer later in his life commented, faith to be faith must center around something that is not known. Faith to be faith must go beyond that which there is confirming evidence. Faith to be faith must go into the unknown. Faith to be faith must walk to the edge of the light and then a few steps into darkness. Now, I love what Isaac is doing as Rachel and the trusted servant is returning. The camels are far away. If it was me, I'd be up around pacing. I'm a pacer. I'd be all over the place. I'd be putting things to write down. I'd be arranging things for the 10th time. He has gone away just a little bit more by himself into a field and is meditating. Chapter 24, verse 63. And Isaac went out to meditate in the field at the evening tide. And he lifted up his eyes and saw, and behold, the camels were coming. There are times in our lives we need to be alone. We need to go off by ourselves. If we're not alone, we may be so deafened that we cannot hear God. Moreover, for the right meditation, we have to seek the right surroundings. And I didn't put it in there, but one of my all-time favorite verses in the Old Testament. She lights off a camel. She gets off the camel. I've made the joke. Where in the Bible does it first talk about smoking? Well, in this chapter, she lights off a camel. But I don't do that anymore. I just don't. Probably not appropriate. But there's a simple phrase when Isaac meets Rebekah is that he loves her. It's an arranged marriage. And he simply loves her. I mean, that's sweet. All right, you ready for a riddle? Switching gears. Can you solve this epic church riddle from 1878? Find first a father's name whose failing powers his son deceived. Then name that father's mother who the promised heir received. Next name a mother who in grief her son from home must send. Her husband's father next appears, God's chosen, faithful friend. Then find an only brother's name who sought his brother's life, and last, a woman who unloved became that brother's wife. Now, who was he that has all these relationships could claim? The initial letters of their names combined will give you his name. The father, grandfather, mother, and grandmother and wife, the brother, all are his, who gave mighty nation life. This is in the Juvenile Instructor, March 15th, 1878. And just so you know, it was a private publication that targeted young members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It became an official church publication from 1901 to 1929. Well, here's the answers. I know I shared this 4 years ago, but here are the answers. Okay, ready? Isaac is the first one. Sarah's the second one. Rachel's the answer to the third one. Abraham's the answer to the fourth line. Esau, the fifth line. Leah is the sixth line. And the first letter, I'll spell out, Israel. That is a brilliant poem. So we're going to skip a little bit to Israel, chapter 28. Jacob first, before he's Israel, went out from Beersheba towards Haran. All right, go back. I think in my mind, where is that? Here is where he's headed. Okay, at the bottom of the screen, you can see the little circle that's going to come in on the screen at the bottom. That's Beersheba. It means the well of the oath, where God promises Isaac the blessings of his father. And then he's going to go to a certain place. It's later going to be named Bethel. Jewish scholars, rabbis, they interpret this phrase, a certain place, but it emphasizes that it's a place set apart. It's holy and special. He'll call it Bethel in a little bit. And then he's headed to the very top of the map, Haran, which means very dry, parched with sun, grievous, very bright like the sun. In other words, if you do the whole journey as a metaphor for what's going on, Jacob is depicting leaving the place of the oath, headed into lone and dreary parched world, and is in the process of an encounter with God at a certain place. Now I'm going to go back, finish the rest of those verses. And he lighted upon a certain place, and tarried there all night, because the sun was set, and took the stones of that place, and put them for his pillows, and lay down in that place to sleep. And he dreamed, and beheld a ladder set up on the earth, and the top of it reached to heaven, and behold, the angels of God ascending and descending on it. Years ago, a woman wrote an incredible hymn about those verses. Her name was Sarah Fuller Flower Adams. All her life, as long as she could remember, she had dreamed of becoming a great actress. She'd worked and studied and struggled towards that goal, and at last she realized her ambition. At last she had scored dramatic triumph as Lady Macbeth, had been hailed as a great actress, was looking forward to a successful career on the stage, but her triumph was brief. Oh, so brief. A sudden, devastating illness had made her an invalid, had taken from her the stage and closed that door to her forever. It was a bitter disappointment. Her minister, Mr. Fox, had come to see her about some poems she was writing, and she complained about her affliction. The minister had quietly taken the Old Testament from her bookshelves, had opened at the story of Jacob's vision at Bethel, and had urged her to read it. She had read it many times before, and she knew the story almost as well as her own. However, as she read it this time, she saw the unmistakable parallel between Jacob's story and her own illness and disappointment. She saw it clearly now, the darkness, the dream, the awakening, the sunshine, the triumph, and the joy. She decided to write a poem about it. She inspired by the theme. She saw the closed door to her own life as ambition and the cross that raiseth me. She saw her illness, her disappointment, her loneliness, her pain as steps to heaven. So by my woes be nearer to God, my God to thee, nearer to thee. She wrote it almost without effort, almost as though the words came to her from some powerful source, outside source. The poem Sarah Adams wrote that afternoon, out of her great need and her own great faith, has become one of the world's most beloved hymns. You know it as Nearer, My God, to Thee. Nearer, my God, to Thee, nearer to Thee. Even though it be a cross that raiseth me, still all my song shall be nearer to God, nearer, my God, to Thee, nearer to Thee. Verse 2, though let the wanderer, the sun gone down, darkness be over me, my rest a stone, yet in my dreams I'd be nearer, my God, to Thee, nearer to Thee. There let the way appear steps unto heaven, all that Thou sendest me, in mercy given. Angels to beckon me, nearer, my God, to Thee, nearer, my God, to Thee, nearer to Thee. Then with my waking thoughts bright Thy praise, out of my stony griefs Bethel I'll raise. So by my woes to be nearer, my God, to Thee, nearer, my God, to Thee, nearer to Thee. Or, if on joyful wing, cleaving the sky, sun, moon, and stars forgot, upward I fly, still all my song shall be nearer, my God, to Thee, nearer, my God, to Thee, nearer to Thee. What helps you get nearer to God? Is it the crosses that sometimes we feel we have? The disappointments? The griefs? What helps you? Joseph Smith gave these words that have helped me in times of kind of challenges. It's not wisdom that we should have all knowledge at once presented before us, but we should have a little at a time, then we can comprehend it. When you climb up a ladder, you must begin at the bottom and ascend step by step until you arrive at the top. And so it is with the principles of the gospel. You must begin with the first and go on until you learn all the principles of exaltation. For me, I wish I knew all the things I knew now 20 years ago. But I'm loving the climb. And no matter how artists depict this climb, it's really fascinating. This artist, it's a literal ladder. Here, some stairs. Some have wings, some angels don't. And this one on the left, I love the tropical vibe. This one's more of the heavenly vibe. Marion G. Romney, when he's a member of the First Presidency, added this insightful comment. When Jacob traveled from Beersheba toward Haran, he had dreamed a dream in which he saw himself on the earth at the foot of a ladder that reached to heaven, where the Lord stood above it. He beheld angels ascending and descending thereon, and Jacob realized that the covenants he had made with the Lord, there were the rungs on the ladder that he himself would have to climb in order to obtain the promised blessing. Blessings that would entitle him to enter heaven and associate with the Lord. Because he had met the Lord and entered into covenants there with him, Jacob considered the site so sacred that he named the place Bethel, a contraction of Beth Elohim, which means literally the house of the Lord. He said of it, There is none other but the house of the Lord, and this is the gate to heaven. And sometimes we want to have our Jacob experiences with our trials in our Bethel. And Marion G. Romney makes the parallel. You can. Your Bethel is Jacob's Bethel. It's the house of the Lord. President Romney continues, quote, Jacob not only passed through the gate of heaven, but by living up to every covenant, he also went all the way in. Of him and his forebears, Abraham, Isaac, the Lord has said, because they did not know things than that which they were commanded, they have entered into their exaltation according to the promises, and sit upon thrones, and are not angels but are gods. Temples are to us what Bethel was to Jacob. Even more, they are also the gates to heaven for all of our endowed kindred dead. We should all do our duty in bringing our beloved ones through them. So you get Beersheba, the well of the oath. Then they're on the way up to Bethel, house of the Lord. They go by Lutz or Nut Tree, growing tree, kind of like that. Destination is Haran, scorched, bright like the sun. And now he's putting it to our journey. The oath or covenant that we make at baptism starts us on this covenant path. That's the well, the water of the oath. And then we head into the drone and dreary, parched world. And we're going to find spiritually growing trees, the Lutzes of our lives. They're going to turn us towards the house of God and keep us on the covenant path towards the Son of God. Joseph Smith said, in his dream, Jacob saw the ladder reaching from heaven to earth to heaven, with angels ascending and descending on it. Above the ladder stood the Lord, who, and we must assume that Jacob ascended the ladder, covenanted with Jacob, as he had with Abraham and Isaac, to bless him and his posterity through all generations. He was told, as had been his fathers, that through his seed all the families of the earth would be blessed. Joseph Smith tells us that the principal rounds of Jacob's ladder were the same ascended by Paul, and that they represented progression from the telestial to terrestrial, and from terrestrial to celestial degrees of glory. And that's lots of quotes from Joseph Fielding McConkie. Now, skipping ahead, you get in Genesis 29, there's a custom. You got a well, and you're going to make sure that no dust or unwanted people are going to access it. So it's not going to become a place where you're going to have random animals showing up. So you put a big stone on it. And you're going to make sure that only the authorized people are, because they have to come in groups. They have to have a big enough stone that it takes multiple people to lift it up. Excuse me. So they're approaching this well, and Jacob sees the shepherds with the flocks, and there's 3 shepherds, 3 flocks. They're waiting for someone to help roll the stone aside. That's a pretty big stone. But also that there's 3 is going to be pretty symbolic here coming up. Well, if you've seen this picture by Raphael in the Vatican, hey, here comes Rachel, and come on, think about the superhuman strength he has. Come on, this is Hulk, right? It came to pass when Jacob saw Rachel, the daughter of Laban, his mother's brother. That's a mouthful. And the sheep, Laban, his mother's brother, that Jacob went near, and rolled the stone from the mouth's well, and watered the flock of Laban, his mother's brother. Come on. Wouldn't that be impressive? Come on, guys. This is all the best. Girl comes, you show off your muscles. Right? Then next verse, I don't know. He's got a smile with it. And Jacob kissed Rachel. How's that for a first date? Lifted up his voice and wept. Okay, girls. You have a guy, first date, kisses you, then starts to cry. All right, I'm no more commentary on that. But there is a foreshadowing here. I noticed that he waters Laban's flock, no one else's. And I get that. But you also have 3 shepherds, and he tries to get rid of them. Hey, it's good time to go out and go away, because I think Rachel's going to be coming here with her flock. You go get somewhere else. You got lots of time to go feeding. But in Jacob's life, you have Rachel who will be barren. You have 3 other women who maybe don't get the same emotional attachment, who will have kids. And later on, Rachel's not barren. It's just interesting that it's 3 setting in context with Rachel becoming his wife. But we're going to go kind of quick on this. He serves for 7 years, deal with Laban for Rachel. Rachel has an older sister who's tender-eyed. But Rachel's beautiful and well-favored. I don't know that we really know what tender-eyed mean. The context is Rachel's beautiful, but Leah is tender-eyed. Maybe she's a little more quiet while Rachel's outgoing. Some people interpret that as her eyes were really attractive. And that's really attractive. And that's kind of what this is kind of saying. Hey, she had really good, beautiful eyes. But Rachel, she's beautiful. And you get the night, and you get the wedding reception, because I've always thought, what the heck's going on here? If you're marrying somebody, and you've been engaged 7 years, and you're with dad around the girl for 7 years, you got to know who she is. You can recognize her by sight. You can recognize her by walk. You can recognize her by, I'm going to say, the perfume. Usually these wedding celebrations last a week. Okay, it's customary. You know from the story, the oldest one gets married first. And the bride is veiled, and Jacob's unable to see her face. And there's a theme of deception that goes along here. And Jacob's been a little bit of a part of it. We'll come back to that in just a minute. When he goes in after the wedding, it's dark. He can't see her. And scholars believe that these feasts involved wine. Lots of wine. Now think about what you're thinking about. If you're Leah, hey, this guy loves Rachel. And you know it and she knows it. And you're going to be a part of deception. What about Rachel? Would you even attend the wedding? Would you be in your tent crying? What about Laban? I'm messing this kid over. I'm messing my daughter over. He is very shrewd in what he gets out of it. And Jacob, what are you thinking the next morning? And you get verse 30, you get these kind of relationships going. After he marries Rachel, in verse 30, he loved also Rachel more than Leah. Man, that's got to be hard for all 3 of them. And verse 31, when the Lord saw that Leah was hated, he opened her womb, but Rachel was barren. Back then, if you're a woman, you don't have kids, it's seen as there's something unworthy about me. And when you have a kid, especially a son, you feel like you're blessed back then. Well, you get this family tree, and I put it all up there, and it's a lot. You can pause it, kind of review. But skipping to Jacob, Leah's going to have a few kids. Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah. And then handmaiden Bilhah is going to have Dan and Naphtali, and Zilpah is going to have Gad, Asher. Leah's then going to have Issachar and Zebulun, and then Dinah. Man, you got a nice family here. And you think, okay, what about Rachel? Now she has Joseph. And then Benjamin. And these names of these kids make your heart ache at times. You think about the wife Leah, who all she wants is her husband's love. And the first kid's Reuben, which means, look, a son! Or the Lord has seen my misery. Oh, man. I'm not loved as much, so I've got a son. Now my son will love, or my husband will love me. And then, next kid, Jacob still doesn't love Leah as much. Second kid's named Simeon, or meaning hearing. The Lord has heard that I'm not loved. Holy cow, your heart goes out. Levi, third kid, now, finally, which means joined, pledge, or my husband will become attached. Finally, I've given 3 boys. My husband will finally become attached to me. And then by boy 4, it's like things have changed. Okay, I don't need to be blessed anymore. I'm resigned with my lot with my husband, but I will praise the Lord because I got Judah. It means praise. I'm going to praise. I'm going to be content with where I am. So you get the rest of these as these kids, and Jacob is working for the wages for cattle and sheep in chapter 30. And I just add this little comment. You get in verse 30, Jacob is a husbandman with these sheep. He is a breeder. He knows what's going to be good. He singles out these ones that seem to be, hey, they've got good stock. And then I think he goes to Laban and says, hey, any of these that are speckled, come on, little like this, I'll take. You take the ones that are white. I see that Jacob knows through breeding, here's what's going to be the best. I think he's being shrewd. And I think, from what I can tell about Laban, he's in it for the looks, he's in it for the money. He's like, yeah, there's more of these. They look better. I'm going to take them. And there's this elaborate work, put out little reeds. I think that's all ruse, just to make him think, here's what I'm doing. But I think he's just being wise. Okay, going back to kids, you got the names of these other kids. Dan, God has judged or vindicated me. Naphtali, wrestling, or I've might of wrestlings with God. Oh man, that's really cool. Okay, because Rachel's had these wrestlings, and this is the handmaid, and assembling the wrestlings with her sister, and maybe tense with Naphtali's being born. There's tension between the sisters. And then Zilpah has Gad. Hey, good fortune's come. Asher, how happy and blessed am I. Issachar, hey, recompense, rewarded me to my husband. Yeah, this is really good. And then Zebulun, a dwelling, an exalted abode. God's presented me with a precious gift. I've got all these kids. And then Joseph, he shall add. There's hope. Hopefully I just don't have one, but I want another, which is going to foreshadow the second part of Joseph's name, which means he shall take away. Because as Rachel gets her second son, as God gives the second son, her life is taken away. Hence he becomes Ben-Oni, Benjamin, son of my sorrow, son of my right hand, or son of my covenant. And then skipping into chapter 31, Jacob serves Laban for 7 years for Leah, serves for 7 years for Rebekah, 6 more years for flocks and cattle. And then in chapter 31, verse 3, the Lord says unto Jacob, return unto thy land of thy fathers and unto thy kindred, and I'll be with thee. And Rachel and Leah answered and said unto him, wait a minute. Usually the girls are given a dowry. What do we get out of this? Is there anything left? I mean, Dad has everything. That's verse 14. Rachel and Leah answered and said unto him, is there any portion or inheritance for us in our father's house? Are we not counted him of strangers? And this is very telling. This is their attitude. He hath sold us. He made money on us. There's no dowry. He got 7 years for one of us and 7 years for the other and 6 years for these flocks and cattle. You've paid for it, Jacob. But us, what do we get out of it? He hath sold us the daughters, and have quite devoured also our money. For all the riches which God hath taken from our father, that is ours, and our children's. Now then, whatsoever God said unto thee, do. He's not going to give us anything. God tells you to do that. Let's do it. I think there's a little bit of obedience, but I also think there's a little bit of like, all right, it's time. We're out of here. I take it from Laban's perspective. He goes off sheer sheep. He comes back. Daughters are gone, but the grandkids are gone. Come on, if you're a grandparent, that's the favorite hello you get. And they're blessings. So when Laban meets up with Jacob, he's going to ask a couple questions. What are you doing? Why are you doing it? And Jacob answered unto Laban, because I was afraid. For I said, peradventure, thou would take by force thy daughters from me. God told me to go, but my relationships with you is I'm doing everything for you. I thought you'd say, okay, God tells you to go, see you later. But my daughters, my grandkids, my money, my flocks stay with me. That's not the case. I don't think that's what Laban intended at this time. Laban's honest. Yeah, he's making money, but when he makes a deal, he keeps it. But these fears are the fears of Jacob's mind. Maybe because Jacob's past. Maybe because what Jacob's done in the past. Maybe he's seeing Laban through the lens of his own mind. And the lenses of our mind sometimes add to our own fears. President Gordon B. Hinckley said, "Who among us can say that he or she has not felt fear? I know of no one who's been entirely spared. Some, of course, experience fear to a greater degree than do others. Some are able to rise above it quickly, but others are trapped and pulled down by it, even driven to defeat. We suffer from the fear of ridicule, the fear of failure, the fear of loneliness, the fear of ignorance. Some fear the present, some the future. Let us recognize that fear comes not of God, but rather that this gnawing, destructive element comes from the adversary of truth and righteousness. Fear is the antithesis of faith. It is corrosive in its effects, even deadly. God has given us the power of the gospel to lift us above our fears. We need not fear as long as we have in our lives the power that comes from righteously living by the truth which is from God our eternal Father. We need not fear as long as we have the power of faith. I have seen time and again that love of God can bridge the chasm of fear. Love for the church can also lift one above doubt. So I think, what are some lessons we can learn right here now from Laban and Jacob? Well, part of it, the last part, let Rachel and Leah say, hey, whatever God said to you, do. Regardless of you're missing out, the FOMO. Maybe if we'd stay another year, things get better and I'd get the dowry. I think there's also an act of faith here. And maybe the lessons between Jacob and Laban, communicate. Fears often go away when you communicate. And don't let fear eclipse your faith. As President Hinckley noted, the love of God can bridge the chasm of fear. And you know what they say about the word assume? I've already made one probably weird joke, so I won't make this another joke. Another one, and this is from Brad Wilcox, and I love his talk, Twice Blessed. If others have hurt you, forgive them, especially if they are members of your own family. And there's this beautiful thing in the King James Version as they leave, Laban and Jacob. The Lord watch between me and thee when we are absent one from another. Hey, God be with you when we're gone until we meet again. Well, he's on his way, chapter 32, to meet his brother Esau in Edom. And he sends messengers. In verse 6, they come back. Great! We saw your brother Esau, and also he cometh to meet thee. Great! And 400 men with him. Then Jacob was afraid and distressed. And I pause. Why is he so distressed about meeting Esau? You go back to long time ago when he's born. His name can be construed as he who acts crookedly. As he comes out of the womb, he's grabbing Esau's heel. It's not hand. It's not, hey, Esau comes out first and he's second. It's like, I'm going to grab onto you so I can come out too. It's, maybe I'm afraid. And you get that imagery in the birth. Jacob has this striving with Esau for the birthright. And I just note, Esau sells the birthright. But it never in Scripture says that Jacob buys it. It's not his to buy. The birthright is the eldest son's given by the father. And it's only when dad gives it to Jacob is it truly Jacob's. There's the whole deception with his mom in obtaining his father's blessing, and it's deception. And he's given the blessing, and you may remember Esau comes in and says, hey, what do you mean? The blessing's already been given to him. What about me? And Isaac's message is, no. The blessing stays where it is. The blessing came from God. Even though I thought it was you, Esau, when I put my hands on his head, I had the inspiration, and this is what it should be. And now Esau's even more mad, right? And then, hey, we can tell you're about ready to kill each other. And the fact that Jacob can lift up this well, this stone on top of a well all by himself, he's pretty powerful. He's going to be able to defend himself. And maybe that's why his mom says, hey, I don't want to lose you both. You get into a fight, you may both kill each other. Go away. And leaves and's gone for 20 years. Well, what's his relationship with Esau? Last time he met him, Esau's ready to kill him. And now he's coming with 400 people. And back with Jacob, he's had multiple contendings with Laban. He's left Grandpa abruptly. And now he's journeying on this reunion toward Esau, and 400 men are coming with him. 400 men in other parts of the Bible, like Joshua, is the size of a raiding party. So, okay, here comes a raiding party, 400. Brother Wilcox says this: Jacob is convinced they are coming to destroy him. His assumption about his brother is severe, thinking Esau will kill his wives and children also. How often we make similar suppositions about the reactions of those whose forgiveness or reconciliation we seek. And this may hold us back. Jacob's fears, may we add that they are false fears, cause him to plead fervently with the Lord and wrestle all night long, seeking God's blessing. And for me, this is probably the climax of the story, is his wrestle. And we can think about not just his wrestle, but our wrestles. No matter how you focus on it, wrestling, maybe your struggle in the wrestling, and maybe you're always in the foreground, but his wrestle is symbolic of ours. We have our fears. We have our struggles. We have our wrestles. And maybe our wrestles are with a person, an element in history, a doctrine we don't understand as the Lord does. But no matter what it is, as we keep our wrestle, keep going our wrestle, have your wrestle, you can be blessed too. Now, this is come from the Hertz in Pentateuch and Horatoffs. Jacob's wrestle represents the crisis in Jacob's spiritual history. It records his meeting with a heavenly being, the change of his name to Israel, the blessing of being wrestled with him, and the consequent transformation of his character. Commentators in all ages regarded this contest as symbolic, the outward manifestation of the struggle within the patriarch, as in every mortal, between his baser passions and his nobler ideals. In the dead of night, he had sent his wives and sons and all that he had across the river. Jacob was left alone with God. there in the darkness, given over to anxious fears. God's messenger was wrestling with him, who had often wrestled with men, and had won by sheer energy, persistency, and superior wit. He, Jacob, strove with an angel, and prevailed. He, Jacob, wept, and made supplication unto him. That supplication for mercy, forgiveness, and divine protection is heard. Jacob, the supplanter, becomes Israel, Prince of God. This mysterious encounter with the patriarch has become the universal human allegory of the struggles and wrestlings on the eve of some dreadful crisis, in the solitude and darkness of some overhanging trial. Genesis 32, verse 28 says, "And he said, Your name shall no more called Jacob, the supplanter," right? The one of crooked nature, "but Israel. For you have struggled with God and with men, and have prevailed." I love that. Not just have you struggled with God, but you struggled with men too. You've had your vast differences. There have been some things that are a little shady. Changing the name from Jacob to Israel is significant. Jacob means supplanter, or one who overthrows. Israel means Prince of God, one who strives with God, one who rules with God, one who wrestles with God, one who prevails with God, and soldier of God. Jacob not only wrestled with God, but in doing so became one who would rule with God and a soldier of God. And as President Nilsson has noted, an application very simply of that is to his name of one who prevails with God. That can be us too. Let God prevail in our lives. President Nilsson said, "When your greatest desire is to let God prevail, to be part of Israel, so many decisions become easier. So many issues become non-issues. You know how to best groom yourself. You know what you're to watch and read, where to spend your time, and with whom to associate. You know what you want to accomplish. You know you're the kind of person you really want to be." And to survive spiritually is to be determined to let God prevail in our lives. And I just think, what are we all doing, and we're continuing to do, to let God prevail in your lives? And I'm just going to add, if you have made it through 57 minutes of this video, thank you first. But I think you watch videos of this that I'm trying to make sure they're focused in the scriptures. That's just a sign of you in your life. You're trying to let the focus be God, the focus being the scriptures, trying to let God prevail. Got to get the rest of it because I'm going to add in what Brother Wilcox says. I think the climax is right here. Wrestle with God, and God's prevailing. And I see Jacob now maybe as a spiritually reborn again person. And maybe that's happened earlier in his life. But he's now transformed. And he lifts up his eyes and looks. Here comes Esau with his 400-man raiding party. And I can still imagine the fears that's in him. And this is a highlight verse for me as well. Chapter 33, verse 4. The growth in Esau. When Jacob left Esau, there's some hard feelings. And I can imagine I'd be mad at him too, Jacob too. But Esau's heart has changed and he has grown. And verse 4, Esau ran to meet him and embraced him and fell on his neck and kissed him, and they wept. And some translations have just Jacob wept. I think about the forgiveness of Esau. I think he'd been wronged. I think he'd been messed over. But he is the one that runs to the person who messed over him, realizing he's coming back to make amends. That's obvious. He's going to make it really easy to make amends. He doesn't say, "Hey, Jacob, before I give you a hug, apologize." It's, "I'm going to run and give you a hug." No words. You got to know of my love. It just reminds me of Luke 15, verse 20. This is Christ using the same vocabulary when the prodigal son returns. And I love it. The prodigal son is Jacob, the one who's let Israel prevail. It's all of us. We're the prodigal son in this one. And he arose and came to his father, but when he was yet afar off, his father saw him and had compassion and ran and fell on his neck and kissed him. So Genesis chapter 33, verse 3, you think about what the effect has on us as we forgive. And just think about, just look for what is repeated. And as he passed over them, he bowed himself to the ground 7 times. This is Jacob. 7 times is a sign that, oh, I'm in front of royalty, until he came nearer to his brother. Okay, Esau ran to meet him, okay, and fell on him, kissed him, and wept. He lifted up his eyes, saw the women and children, and said, Who are those with thee? And he said, The children which God hath graciously given thy servant. Then the handmaidens came near, they and their children, and they bowed themselves. And Leah also with her children came near and bowed themselves. And after came Joseph near, and Rachel, and they bowed themselves. And don't you love that theme? Coming nearer. Michael Wilcox says, I am aware that in both Joseph's and Jacob's stories, the words came near mean simply that they approached. But let us give them deeper meaning of spiritual and emotional retying of family relationships. In families, forgiveness, especially the coming near, may be the fulfillment of mercy. Our invitation to family members to come near, inasmuch as that nearness does not continue to create harm, becomes the completing act of full forgiveness. We can say, I forgive you. We can also say, come near to me. Is not the ultimate coming near the essence of the atonement? Jesus initiating, facilitating, inviting all of us to come near the Father into eternal felicity. Elder Marion G. Hanks also said, What is our purpose when we are offended, misunderstood, unfairly or unkindly treated, or sinned against, or made an offender for a false word, falsely accused, passed over, hurt by those we love? Our offerings rejected. Do we resent, become bitter, hold a grudge? Or do we resolve the problem we can forgive and rid ourselves of the burden? The nature of our response to such situations may determine the nature and quality of our lives, here and eternally. Even if it appears another may be deserving of our resentment or hatred, none of us can afford to pay the price of resenting or hating because of what it does to us. Remember, fear doesn't come from God, it comes from the adversary. Fear is the antithesis of faith. God gives us power, love, and a sound mind as an antidote to fear. Thanks for spending some time with me today as we've studied chapter 24 verses through 33. And I know my goal, honestly, is, I told my wife, I want these to be about 15 minutes. And then I get preparing, and if I would have kept everything I prepared, it would have been 2 hours. And then it's just kind of like, let's narrow things down. Hey, that's my goal, is to keep it an hour, but I've got the gift of gab. Thanks for spending time with me. Keep smiling.